Ciao, my name is Alessandro, but you can call me 𝗃𝗶𝗱, and I've heard that 2024 is coming to an end. Yeah, I know, shocking news. And so it is time. It is time to talk about my top 10 games of 2024. Now, what you might not know is that on a daily basis, I'm a data scientist. And we like to have an overview, recap, or just see the data, get some information out of it. And I was like, I need to understand which games I played this year and what did I like the most. Let's rank them all. But I was struggling because I realized that I can't compare the games that are new to me to the games that I already know, they're well loved, well played, and I replayed during this year. So I decided to make two top 10s. One for the new to me games of 2024 and one for the games that I already knew and I replayed in 2024. And so today we're gonna only be talking about the games that are new to me this year. Now, what can you expect from this video? As I said, I ranked all the games that I played that were new to me in 2024. And there were 42 games new to me this year. But we're only gonna talk about the top 10, the best of the best. The same is gonna happen for the other ranking that I'm gonna make, the top 10 of the games that I replayed this year, and you're gonna find the link to that video in the description below. Also, you don't wanna sit here and hear me talk about 10 games, but you only wanna explore the top 5, the top 3, or whatever you wanna do. Don't worry, I've got you covered. You're gonna find the timestamps of each position of the game in the chapters of this video, but also in the description below. It's spoiler free, so I haven't included the names of the games. Oh, you haven't included the names of the games? That's so annoying. Why did you do that? Because there are some people that want to enjoy the video without knowing what's coming next. If you're not among these people, if you want to watch the full ranking, there's gonna be another link in the description below where there is my full ranking of all the 42 games, so you know every single game of my ranking of the new to me games in 2024. Just click on that, it's gonna open in a page, in a paste bin page, and you're gonna see the full ranking. There's two more things you're gonna find in the description below. It's gonna be crowded, okay? It's gonna be crowded. For some of the 10 games that we're gonna talk about today, I made some playthrough videos and even how to plays. So I thought to include the links to the playlist with those videos in the description below. Last but not least, I also made a mid-year review where I ranked all the 43 games that I played in the first 6 months of 2024. I made this video in July. If you wanna check it out, I'm gonna leave you a link also in the description below. That's all, I swear. Before we begin, I want to remind you that if you like this kind of content, if you like board games, if you like me, I don't know, maybe you decided you already liked this video. If you want to leave a like, subscribe to my channel, I would be immensely grateful. And thank you if you decide to do so. So as I said, I have played 42 games this year and I want to start with some honorable mentions. The first honorable mention is a game that actually ranked 12th in my full ranking, and it is Sleeping Gods Primeval Peril. This game is an evolution of the original Sleeping Gods. So if you don't know the Sleeping Gods franchise, it's kind of an adventure kind of game, story driven, where you're basically exploring a lot of the world, a lot of the map or something like that. There was obviously an original game just called Sleeping Gods, and then they came out with a new game called Sleeping Gods Primeval Peril and another game called Sleeping Gods Distant Skies. These two new releases changes a little bit how the combat works and how some of the things work, and of course the whole narrative it's completely different, and I like these two implementation of the combat more. I never played the original Sleeping Gods, but I played Sleeping Gods Primeval Peril. When I decided to try Sleeping Gods, I decided to go for these two latest releases because I liked the improvements of the combat mechanics and in general the other improvements. So I decided to try with Sleeping Gods Primeval Peril, which is like a very short campaign compared to Distant Skies, which is a full-blown immense amount of content kind of campaign. I have made not only one full campaign playthrough, but actually two full campaign playthroughs, and I basically explore all the content of Sleeping Gods Primeval Peril on my channel, and you can find the links in the description below. And the reason why this 12th is that there isn't that much content. After you played a couple of campaigns, you know everything, and that's kind of meh, because replaying the game is not gonna be exciting anymore. But it is a great game, and I wanted to include it because I liked it so much that I actually purchased Distant Skies. You see the big blue box there? That's Sleeping Ghost Distant Skies that I'm gonna play soon on my channel too. So I just wanted to mention it because it's a great game. The second honorable mention is the Exit Advent Calendar 2024, The Missing Hollywood Star. I also played every single day of that Advent Calendar on my channel recently because it's basically Christmas time. And I didn't include it in my ranking at all because I don't feel like it's comparable to the other games, because it's a game that you play once and then it's kind of done. So I wouldn't be like, I don't know, I don't want to compare it to the other games. But I enjoyed it very, very much. It's a definitely cool activity for families, for a couple, or even to play solo. And you have a riddle a day and you just need to make your brain work a lot. If you watch my videos, you definitely know how fun this was for me and sometimes these mind-blowing moments. I think the whole Exit franchise is pretty cool, but the Advent calendars are really like top tier. I honestly prefer the Advent calendars to the rest of the small box games. Honorable mentions are out of the way, let's start with our top 10. At position number 10 we find SkyTeam, which is a 2-player only collaborative game about rolling dice and landing a plane. I've only played it once in person, but I played it a bunch of times on Board Games Arena because it's available there. And the super fun thing about this game is that there are so many ways to lose the game. Crashing to another plane, not activating the flaps, going too fast when you're landing, not having the plane straight when you're landing, and so many more. It is just so hilarious. You have like 20 conditions how you can lose the game. Another very unique thing and very fun thing about this game is that it is collaborative, yes, but you are not allowed to discuss strategy after you have rolled the dice. So every turn is gonna open like, let's discuss strategy, and then you roll the dice, and from that moment on until all the dice have been placed and used, you are not allowed to talk to your partner. And this makes it very fun because you're kind of like trying to communicate without communicating. So like using the dice placement in some areas to really communicate intentions. Another great thing about this game is that it has so many components in the actual base box. So you have missions because you want to spice it up the game, and it has extra modules that you can put on top of the base game, and that is just gonna expand the game so much with like new ways of losing, new ways of winning, new mechanics in the game. So it has a lot of content and it has a lot of replayability in my opinion. Since I'm also gonna be discussing about drawbacks of these games, there is one drawback about this game, just one that I really want to highlight, and it's not really a drawback, it's how it's been designed. It is a 2-players only game, and that's probably the reason why I don't own it and I don't play it much, because I almost never play in only 2 players. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever played SkyTeam, or have you heard about it? Because it kind of got popular after it came out. And what are your thoughts about it? At position number 9 we find Tiny Epic Dungeons, a game from 1 to 4 players about dungeon crawling and killing a boss. One thing I want to say is that even if it has the solo mode, it's not true solo, you have to control 2 characters. Sometimes there are some games where having to control 2 characters is very overwhelming and, to be honest, not ideal, so I don't like when they put the solo modes in that kind of game. So for example, 𝗵𝗵𝗵, I don't like playing it solo, I wouldn't try it, but this game is totally manageable. I think solo is just as fun as 2 players. Actually, if you control 2 players, you're just gonna take 2 turns, one after the other with 2 characters. I think it's definitely fine at 1 player, even if it doesn't have a true solo mode. The gameplay is kind of divided into phases. In the first phase, you kind of look for minions. You have to kill 2 minions in a 2 players game. And after you kill these minions, you can actually find the boss lair. In the second part, after you enter the boss lair, you just need to kill the boss. You lose if you run out of time, because you have a time counter, and also if you ever need to spawn more than 4 goblins. So you need to be actively killing these annoying monsters along the way. Your characters in this game never die, but they can be knocked out, which means they have to rest, which means you're gonna lose time, which means you're gonna get closer to failure. So be careful about managing the health of your characters. What I like about this game is that even if it's a tiny box, it has a lot of bosses, a lot of characters, a lot of loot, and a lot of spells. So every single time you play, you can have completely different builds and enjoy a completely different adventure. Also, I really like the dice mechanics in this game, because you need to roll some dice for the combat. So suppose you need to take a skill check and you need to roll 3 dice, you're only allowed to select one of the dice for the actual resolution of the test, and the other 2 are kind of wasted. But there's a but, There's actually 2, because the dice are simply like going from 1 to 6. But the 1 and 2 are not simply a 1 and 2, but they are a +1 and +2, which means that they can be combined with the main die you select for the skill test to increase the final value. The second but that I want to talk about is that all the dice that you haven't used for the skill check can give you resources. And there are 2 types of resources in the game, health and focus. And the focus is gonna help you trigger some abilities, and the health is just health. Then of course this game is super portable because it's super small. Now, one drawback I want to mention is that it has many symbols, like a lot of symbols. To be like such a tiny game, it has a pretty complex set of rules, not really complex, but long set of rules and a lot of symbols to remember. So it looks like an innocent small game, but it isn't. It can take you like 2.5 hours for a playthrough. And to check that what I'm saying is true, you can actually check my solo playthroughs of this game. Again, the link is gonna be in the description below. This is Tiny Epic Dungeons, which is actually part of the Tiny Epic kind of series of games. I haven't tried any of the others, but let me know if I should try anything else, and if you tried this game, what do you think about it? At position number 8, we find The Witcher Old World, which is an exploration game and also deck builder about killing monsters in a true Witcher's fashion. If you know the Witcher franchise, which I don't, there are books, there are TV series, movies, games, whatever, and there is a whole world to discover about it. But I don't, and I still enjoy the game. So if you actually know any of these things and you enjoy any of these things, you're probably gonna like this game more, even more because of the theme. So more or less, how does it work? Each turn is divided in 3 phases. In the first phase, you're gonna use the cards in your hand to roam around the map, which is gonna allow you to collect gold, play dice poker, or level up your character, or complete quests. In the second phase, you're gonna be most likely either reading an exploration card, which is gonna give you a story, a choice, and then either some boons, some penalties, some quests, or you're gonna be fighting either a monster or another Witcher to gain some trophies. And in the third phase, you're gonna be purchasing cards from the tableau to enter your deck. The winner is gonna be who manages to collect 4 trophies first, and the trophies you're gonna collect by either killing monsters, fighting other Witchers and winning in that fight, or by leveling up your character to some of the skills to the maximum level. It is at its core a deck builder because you're gonna be building your deck to be able to deal more damage in combat, and we're gonna see how, but it also is a hand management kind of game because you really wanna manage your hand, being able to take as many actions as possible when roaming around the map in the first phase of the turn. I think in my opinion, the coolest part of the game is the combat mechanism, because basically your deck is your health pool, but also the weapon that you're gonna use against the monsters, and you can combo a lot of different cards that can chain together to create like a mess, chaos, a lot of damage, a lot of effects, and it's super cool. It's a little bit difficult to explain, but just so you know, the cards can chain with each other, creating like a domino effect that is super amazing. The production is amazing. Everything looks super beautiful and the components are super cool. Plus, it can be turned into a collaborative game by adding an expansion called the Wild Hunt expansion. Now, it has also quite some negatives in my opinion. The first one is that this game is marked from 1 to 5 players, but really I wouldn't go over 3 players. At 4 and 5 players there is so much downtime between the turns of a player and the other. It's just insane. People are just gonna get bored and not follow the game anymore. And I speak out of experience, but I also speak out of reviews of people that I read. It's just like a mess. Because there isn't that much interaction while someone else is doing their turn, okay? So if it's 2 or 3 players, you can plan ahead about your turn, or you can control the monsters during a fight. But if it's more than 3 players, it's really like, there's really no point. The second big drawback is that the setup and teardown of this game is probably the longest I've ever experienced. Probably also because my box is very messy and I need to sort it out very well for me to be functional, but it is so long. Another thing is that for such a long game, good production and everything, without some of the expansions, like for example the Monster Trail expansions, the fight can be a little bit too simple. So one of the core of the games, which is the combat, is really like very, I don't know, back and forth, not that much dynamics and so on. I feel like the Monster Trail expansion is must have for like more experienced players. Some expansions like this one really spice up the games, and this game really needs to be spiced up. But also I can understand that this might be a board game for people coming from the books or from like the video game, and so an easier set rules is what maybe they would be looking for. If you play this game, do you agree with this? What are your thoughts on this game? And I don't know, I was expecting more from this game, so let me know your thoughts. I want to chat about it. At position number 7, we're gonna find The Search for the Lost Species, which is a pure logical deduction game about locating some species on a map, especially the lost species. You might not have heard of this game, but this game is a reimplementation of The Search for Planet X, and I'm sure you've heard about this, not sure, but like it's more likely that you heard about The Search for Planet X because it was one of the most critically acclaimed deduction games. And I think it is one of the highest ranked deduction games, logical deduction games, on Board Games Geek. This one is a little bit more complex than The Search for Planet X because of some extra mechanics, but that's pretty much the difference, they're very similar. The concept of the game is pretty easy. Each location on the map either has one of the species or is truly empty, and some of the species, like the predefined species in the game, which are 4, have some predefined logical rules. For example, the lories are always together in a diamond shape, or for example the python doesn't want to be next to a couscous, or the toads are always close to a truly empty sector. What you're gonna do during your turn is choosing one of the actions to be able to gain more information, and information can be like the presence of some species in an area or some more logical rules. But each action comes with a cost in time, so you need to compromise very powerful actions which are very costly in time, or some simpler actions that cost you less time so that you can take more of them. You will be acquiring points by not only spotting the lost species, which is not the winning criteria, but also by placing some theories in some areas. So you're gonna bet on which animal is in some areas, and at the end of the game, the player with the most victory points wins. Of course, finding and locating the lost species first is gonna help you win the game because it's a bunch more points. And that's also the trigger of the end game. It is really a truly pure deduction game with a lot of strategy on which actions to select. And that's probably its drawback. It is a pure logical deduction game, so you have to find the right audience for it, because not everybody enjoys deduction. I love deductions, and I see that not many people do. It is also app-driven, which can turn like some people away. I don't understand why, but basically some people just don't like using an app. Good news for you solo gamers is that it has a solo mode. You're basically gonna be playing against an AI that can be simple or hard mode. It's called 𝗃𝗍. It's in the game, it's in the app, implemented in the app. And I have 2 solo playthroughs, one on the easy map with the easy tiny, and the other one on the hard map with the hard tiny. And you're gonna find the links of the playlist in the description below, just as usual. Now a little survey, how many of you actually like deduction? Because if you don't like deductions, what are you doing? Honestly, what's your problem? But honestly, deduction is one of my all-time favorite kind of mechanics in the game, so I'm biased, okay? I'm biased. At position number 6, we find Wonderland's War, a competitive bag builder push your luck war game set in Wonderland. Yes, that Wonderland, the one with Alice, with the Cheshire Cat, with the Queen of Hearts, the Mad Hatter, and so on. Quickly, how does it work? You have 3 rounds, and each round is divided in 2 phases. In the first phase, in the tea party, everybody's gonna go around the table, acquire some cards, and these cards can be used for several different reasons. So put more chips in your bag, or for example skill up your character with some upgrades, or for example acquire some special units called Wonderlandians and so on. They're also gonna allow you to deploy units on the areas of Wonderland. There are 5 areas in Wonderland and you can deploy units in them. In the second phase, you're gonna fight in each of the 5 areas one at a time, and in each of them there's gonna be a battle. And how the battle is carried out is by drawing chips out of the bag, and in the end you're basically gonna compute the strength of all the chips that you took out of your bag, and the person with the highest strength wins. But here comes the push your luck dynamic of the game, because you can draw chips from the bag, but some of them are very bad and they're gonna make you lose units in the area, and if you lose all the units in the area, you're gonna bust and lose immediately the fight. So you need to really think about when you want to stop about drawing chips out of your bag, or when you really want to push your luck, because winning the fight is gonna give you points, and at the end of the game the person with the most points is who wins. So you really need to be careful about how you're gonna deploy your units and use your units in battle. Needless to say, this game is absolutely beautiful. All the components are absolutely amazing. Even in the non-deluxeified version that I have, everything is amazing. You don't have the premium chips? Who cares? You have the standees instead of the plastic minis? Who cares? They're great, they look amazing, they feel amazing. And it's not just a pure luck game, it is strategic, because how you build your bag and the combos in your bag and how you deploy your units, that's all strategy. The tea party is the most strategic part of the game, because you're really like preparing for battle. Tea party? But sometimes it's also fun to let the fate decide for you, and just you can have a big laugh at your horrible luck. It happens, don't get mad. It also has a lot of replayability, because even though you're gonna be playing always with the same chips, the chips can have different set of rules. There are 4 different set of rules that you can just experiment with. So super fun, but this one is also a table hog. I mean, it is long setup, not as much as The Witcher, at least in my opinion, but is huge. Huge. It's immensely like gigantic. Also, last I heard, it wasn't coming back to retail, so you have to like pledge some Kickstarter. I don't know how this stuff works, but I mean, I'm sorry if I'm talking about a game that you might want to play or you might like and you can't find in your friendly local gaming store. One thing I want to say is that when I purchased this game, I thought it was like some introduction of a longer game for people that are not really gamers, but they want to dip their toes in something a little bit more complex, a little bit longer, but without it making super strategic. This is not the game. It has way too many rules for someone who's not like experienced in having and absorbing a bunch of rules. Also here the player count is a little bit like, I don't know if it's great at 2, I never played. You cannot play at 1, obviously, because it's a battle. How do you do that? There is a solo variant on somewhere in the forums of Board Games Geek. I need to try that, but I think optimal is at 3 or 4. 5 it gets long, too long. And when I say too long, I mean like 3-4 hours. I don't say 2 hours, I don't mean 2 hours. Usual question, have you played? Have you heard about this game? What do you think? Do you like Alice in Wonderland? Let me know. At position number 5, we find Too Many Bones. I mean, you can see it here in the back. It's a dice builder RPG game where you're basically gonna adventure in 𝗏𝗏, and your objective is to kill one of the tyrants that are threatening the peace in 𝗏𝗏. If you really like building a character from scratch, which in this game is called Gearlock, and you like rolling a bunch of dice, this might be the game for you. So, basic structure of how it works. How do you win? Killing a tyrant. How do you kill a tyrant? In a battle. How do you get to the tyrant battle? You need to collect a certain amount of progress points depending on the tyrant. How do you collect progress points? Well, you're gonna have an encounter per day, because this game is structured in day, which you can see as one round of the game. And if you are successful at these encounters, you're gonna get progress points. Once you have enough progress points, you can decide to go and try to kill the tyrant. And the restriction of the game is that you only have so many days, so many rounds, which also means so many encounters, to actually be successful at that mission, so killing the tyrant. And if you don't succeed in that amount of time, you lose the game. Together with progress, something you can gain from the encounters is loot, which is just special cards that do special things, but most importantly, training points. And I think the training points is really where this game shines, because it is the way that you can implement the personalization of your gear lock. Training points can be used to buff up the stats of your gear lock, like health, dexterity, attack, or defense, but they can also be used to purchase skill dice. And the skill dice is the best part of each gear lock. Each gear lock has 16 unique skills dice available in their pool. So the ways to build your gear lock every single time and how to spend the training points are close to infinite. Every time you can choose to change completely the build of a gear lock and make it in more defensive instead of attacking. Sometimes you want to focus on retaliation, sometimes you want to focus on poisoning enemies, sometimes you want to focus on healing other gear locks. You can simply decide if you want to specialize in a mastery or some other mastery, depending on the tyrant, if you want to be strategic about that, but also on your mood. Today I feel like I want to heal people, I want to be altruistic. So this game, except having super premium components, it really shines in this amount of personalization. This comes with a drawback. If each gear lock has 16 skill dice and special dice to themselves, then they're gonna work in a different way, which means people that are gonna face this game for the first time are gonna be a little confused and they're gonna take a lot of time to pick up the game, because each die works in a slightly different way from the others and you really need to understand a lot of keywords, a lot of mechanics, a lot of dynamics. It is not a complex game at its core, but it's complex because there are so many choices and the choices are completely different and work in a different way for each gear lock. You might get stuck into having a lot of questions during your gameplay if you don't have anybody expert at the table with you, which is fine. Sometimes you can just decide, well, this is my game, this is my piece of cardboard, my money, and I can decide the rules as I want. But some other times if you really focused on gaming rules, then you're gonna be like a little bit overwhelmed. Another drawback is that, in my opinion, once you have actually mastered the game, it's a little bit too easy. But this is just my opinion from the experience that I've had playing a couple of times solo and 3 times with other people. And I just want to say that I mastered the game just because I watched a lot of videos of this game, because I find it very entertaining. It's also expensive, and I think the art is a little bit questionable. I don't like the art of this game. I never said it. That's just my opinion. We're not gonna talk about money and we're not gonna talk about the art. One last thing I want to mention is that it isn't really the same difficulty level at all player counts. At 3 and 4 players, it's easier. At 2 player, I think it's the hardest, and 1 player is kind of like regular difficulty. You want to know more about this game? You're in luck. Some playthroughs are coming on my channel very soon. So if you want to check them out, subscribe. But also, if they're already out and I remember, there's gonna be a link in the description below with the playlist, with all the playthroughs. Have you heard about 𝗏𝗏bones? Do you have any opinions? Do you agree with what I said? Or am I completely like off track? At position number 4, we're gonna fight Spirit Island, which is a very strategic game, collaborative, about kicking out invaders from your land. You're a spirit and you wanna defend your land and just kill them all. Disclaimer, at first I thought I wouldn't like this game because I've watched it played online and I thought it would have given me such a big analysis paralysis, but it actually wasn't that bad and I ended up enjoying it a lot. So just an overview, you build your spirit to get more and more powerful throughout the game. So be able to play more cards or get more energy, which is your currency to play cards, and so on. Throughout the game, you're slowly building your spirit. You're also gonna be able to acquire more powerful cards little by little. And more powerful means that you're probably gonna damage more the invaders, or for example, you can instill more fear into the invaders. Fear is a very central concept into this game. So you're basically scaring them out, and the more fear you instill, the easier will be for you to win the game. So while at the beginning your winning condition is going to be to kill every single invader, so every single piece of plastic, which is towns, cities and explorers, if you instill enough fear, you're gonna change the winning condition and you're only gonna be needing to kill or destroy all the towns and cities. And if you instill even more fear, then you only need to kill all the cities. So fear is very important. And it's one of the reasons why I like this game. I really like instilling fear. And when you go from one level of fear to the other, you go and draw some cards called fear cards. And these cards can give you like very powerful effects that are gonna help you win. But another really cool concept that I like is the fast and slow cards. So in collaborative games, usually the enemies have some sort of automated AI-driven kind of turn, some sort of enemy phase, let's call it this way. And usually this enemy phase is either before the player's turn or after the player's turn. Well, in this game, it's in the middle, because basically the cards that you're gonna play are gonna be either fast or slow. So basically you're gonna decide all the cards that you're gonna play at the beginning of your turn in the planning phase, let's say, and then all the fast cards are gonna be played before the enemy turn, and all the slow cards are gonna be played after the enemy phase. And that's very cool because you really need to plan very well when you want to time the effect of a card. Sometimes playing a card in one or the other phase can be absolutely useless. So there is a lot of planning and a lot of collaboration needed in this game, and that is why, as I said at the beginning, I thought it was gonna give us a lot of analysis paralysis, but we played it in 4, we finished in like 2 hours and a half, not even that much, and I thought we were kind of all first time players. I thought it was brilliant, honestly. I thought it was a reasonable amount of analysis paralysis. It wasn't annoying at all. I find this game, it has a very anticlimactic development, because in the first part of the game, you're basically like, you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You think you're gonna lose because the invaders are gonna be more and more and more. They're gonna multiply, and there's no way for you to stop them because you're not powerful enough. At some point, you're kind of gonna reach a balance where you're gonna be able to like send off a lot of the invaders, and then at some point you're just getting more powerful, and then you're gonna be much more efficient at killing invaders. You just need to be very careful at doing that before the actual game ends, because you have a timer given by a deck of cards. So, usual question for you. Do you know this game? Do you like it? Do you want to be a spirit? Which spirit do you prefer? I think I played one that was like the Earth guy. I don't remember exactly. I want to play this game more. I love it, and I think it's very cool. And now let's go into the top 3. We're not gonna talk about top 3. I need to make a statement. These 3 games in my head are tied for first place. They're not third, second one. The ranking that I made here, it's purely based on the fact that I wanna make some other rankings, and they're gonna rank maybe higher or lower. They're gonna switch places. So I think that this ranking is a consequence of other rankings. But in my mind, they're all first players. They're top tier, god heavenly games, okay? Now we can go into our top 3. Now that you know. At position number 3, we're gonna find a game called Dwellings of Eldervale. And this game is a competitive Euro-style kind of game that has so many mechanics in it. It has worker placement, tableau building, a little bit of area control, and so many more. I don't know if you heard recently a game was released called Andromeda's Edge. Well, this is kind of the prequel. Andromeda's Edge is a reimplementation of this game, and most of the mechanics are very similar. So if you know Andromeda's Edge, check out also Dwellings of Eldervale, because I think I like Dwellings of Eldervale more. But also I played Dwellings of Eldervale and I never played Andromeda's Edge, so who am I to judge? Honestly, it is very hard for me to describe this game because it has a lot of components, a lot of different mechanics, a lot of things to know. But everything makes so much sense. It's not a complex game at all. It is very straightforward once you understand how everything is connected with each other. Just to give you an idea, you're basically gonna deploy your units, your workers in Eldervale. And when you deploy units in Eldervale, you're basically gonna get resources or activate some special locations that are gonna give you special effects. And sometimes you're gonna trigger battle if you're gonna go into a space next to a monster or occupied by other players. And the second option you have, when you have deployed all your workers or when you don't wanna deploy any more units in Eldervale, you can recall all your units. Some of them are gonna be in a sort of graveyard called the Underworld, and those units are not gonna be doing anything for you, but the units that were in Eldervale, when they are recalled, they can activate some of the tableau cards that you actually have built during the game and give you some powerful effects to gain more resources or do some shenanigans, weird abilities, and so on. So the very cool part of the game, in my opinion, is that when you recall workers, you're gonna activate more power. Sometimes recalling workers is more advantageous of actually placing a worker, while in most of the games it's just a wasted turn. The game is called Dwellings of Eldervale, so one of the main ways to score points for you is gonna be building dwellings, which is super cool. Super cool, because you basically take one of your little workers and you put a roof on them and you just sacrifice them. So you're gonna sacrifice a worker to be able to create a dwelling in Eldervale. And the game ends when either like someone has built all the 6 dwellings available, or the full Eldervale has been explored and there are no more Eldervale tiles to put out on the map. This game is like so visually appealing to me. It is amazing because it has like 8 elements, you know, fire, earth, air, darkness, light, chaos, order. It has like so many cool images of each of these elements, and the monsters are super cool too. Especially if you have the miniatures, but the miniatures only came with the deluxe and the legendary version of the game. Also, each player components are gonna be in a tray, and these trays are just amazing. They're so functional and they're so well built. The production value of this game is like really how I wish every game was made. Except then I would be even more poor. That's how it works. Also, this one is a table hog, just like 4 of the games that I mentioned before. I don't know, I'm sorry about that. I like very big, long games. Some people complain about the combat mechanic in this game. I don't mind. But just so you know, sometimes you're gonna end up having a combat where you're rolling only 1 die and someone else is rolling 6 dice. And then it is enough for you to roll a 6 and the other player not rolling even any 6 to be able to win. So the person with the highest die rolled wins. And so there is this luck component that some very strategic oriented people hate. There is also a solo version where you're playing against the ghosts of Eldervale. I've had fun playing it on my channel. I have a solo playthrough of that, so you can check it out at the description below. I also have an overview video where I am showing all the cool components of this game. So if you want to watch the minis, they're actually also painted, shaded by the manufacturer, and all the trays that I'm talking about and all the tiles and everything. You can check out the video of the overview at the same playlist of the playthrough. Any comments, opinions, feedbacks, reviews on Dwellings of Eldervale? Let me know. At position number 2, we're gonna have Final Girl, a solo-only game where you, as the final girl, are gonna go after the killer and trying to save victims, while the killer is gonna go after you, trying to kill you and kill all the victims on the board. Now, in this game, all the actions you perform are controlled by the card that you have in your hand that you're gonna play, and each card is gonna trigger basically a test. You're gonna have to roll a die, or 2 dice, or 3 dice, or even more, depending on your horror level. And the number of successes is gonna determine the consequence of playing that card with that amount of successes. The most strategic part of this game, except obviously selecting the right action to play at the right time, is the hand management. Because the cards in your hand are gonna help you not only mitigate dice luck, because sometimes the dice are not with you, but also they're gonna allow you to buy you more time. And time is one of the resources in this game. Because time is what you're gonna spend to buy cards that are gonna allow you to have more actions in later turns. So there is a weird balance, very interesting balance, between like playing all your cards and going all in on actions during a turn, but each of the actions most likely is gonna cost you some time, so you're not gonna have time to purchase cards for the next turn. So you really need to balance like how many actions am I gonna play and how much time I wanna save to buy more cards instead. Everything is super thematic, not even gonna lie. Every feature film is inspired by a different killer of the movies, and I think it's just super fun because the killer is gonna kill victims and get more and more powerful, and you're gonna just find weapons, try to save victims and so on until you reach a bloody finale where everything escalates and you need to survive and kill. The events, the terror cards, the victim panicking can create some hilarious situations, I swear. Hilarious because they're tragicomic, because everything is going south. And it also has a lot of replayability because it comes in seasons, and season 3 is about to be released. And each season has 5 killers, 5 different locations, and basically each killer and each location give different twists to how everything works, and you can mix and match killers and locations together and combine however you want, and it's gonna give you a different experience every time. It's gonna keep it fresh and fun, but if you want a taste of each feature film, this is a solo game, and I play solo games on my channel, so of course I have playthroughs of Final Girl that I did for Halloween, for the spooky season. And you can check out the link to the playlist with the 5 episodes, one for each feature film of the first season, at the description below. Would you have ranked Final Girl as your second top board game? What do you think about it? That all depends if you're good at killing killers, honestly. Before revealing my top new to me game of 2024, I just wanna say, if you're still watching, it means I entertained you somehow, or maybe did you just skip using the timestamps to the position 1 because you just wanted to check out the top game? I see you. I know what you do. And it means that probably you like this video, so why don't you leave a like to this video, subscribe to my channel so I can drop more content that you might enjoy, and I would be super grateful if you decided to do so. I would appreciate it very, very much. Thank you. Just a reminder that you can check out the links to the playthroughs that I made for some of these videos in the description below, and you're also gonna find the link to the top replayed games of 2024 that is gonna come out in a few days. So if it's already out, you're gonna find the link there. Now my top game of 2024 is, drumroll please, Dominant Species. That was awkward. Well, Dominant Species is probably the oldest game of this list, to be honest. It's a Euro-style kind of game about spreading species all over the Earth's surface and dominating territories. Well, what I love about this game is how streamlined everything is. So each round works in 2 phases. The first one where you're planning and you're basically like using your action pawns to select the actions you're gonna be taking in the action phase and booking them. And in the second phase, you're gonna be programmatically executing one by one each of the 12 possible different actions, one after the other. Well, you might think, well, this is then very deterministic. Everything is already decided. You're choosing your actions. You probably have in mind what you're gonna do. Don't be naive, don't be naive. You might have all the best intentions to have it all planned out, but it's not how this game works. Each of the players is gonna have 5, 6 actions to take, and if you're like already like 4 or 5 players, that's 20, 25 actions in a round. And trust me, with each one of these actions, the game state can change drastically. So the game state and the whole situation can change like million times in a single round. So it is very hard to predict what is going to happen once everybody starts resolving their actions. So sometimes you're gonna have to make compromise between what you planned and also what you need to do to kind of like improve the current situation. And this mechanic really makes the game balance tilt and shift throughout the game many times. You might be losing very bad and sometimes have a huge comeback because maybe all the other players go extinct and you're just thriving in the areas. And I love the fact that you can't really tell who's gonna win or who's gonna lose until the very last rounds of the game. There are 2 different concepts in the game. The first one is presence, which is gonna give you through area control a way to get many points when scoring points during the round. The second concept is dominance, which has nothing to do with presence. I mean, you need to have presence to have dominance, but the dominance really depends on the food, nutrients, elements that are in a certain territory, and now they are linked to what your species needs. And having dominance in areas is gonna give you access to some cards called dominance cards, which are sometimes extremely powerful and game breaking. So you really want to balance out these 2 aspects, so being able to get a lot of points but also being able to have dominance in a lot of areas, because otherwise other people are gonna play dominance cards on you before you get the chance to play dominance cards on them. And that's why I found it super brilliant, super genius, and super enjoyable. Also, this game has drawbacks. It is very long. It is too long, probably. I would have shortened the game a little bit. But also the dominance cards, as I said, sometimes can be game breaking, and some other dominance cards in the wrong situation sometimes can do nothing or be mostly useless, not have a super powerful effect. So I would have liked a bit better balance in the dominance cards and how they're played and how they work. But that's pretty much it about dominant species, and I hope you've tried it because it's an amazing game. Let me know what you think about it and let me know if you tried it. And this is all, honestly. This was my top 10 new to me games of 2024. Do you agree? Do you hate me for this ranking? I know these are pretty heavy games. Almost all of them are pretty long and heavy games, but that's the kind of games I like, so sorry about that. I hope you enjoy spending time with me. I hope I gave you some ideas for new games to try in 2025. And I take this chance to wish you a happy new year and that this 2025 can bring you a lot of gaming. Also happiness and success and all these things, but gaming is more important. Thank you so much for watching and ciao ciao!